Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something kind of personal today?
Ooh, personal. I like it. Lay it on me.
Well, today's deep dive is all about body positivity.
Love it. So needed.
Right. But here's the twist. We're not just looking at the definition or history of it. We're dissecting the script for a video, like a persuasive video, trying to get people to actually embrace this whole body positivity thing.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not just information, it's trying to change people's minds.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack. How do you actually persuade someone to change their thinking about something as deeply personal as their own body?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You can't just throw facts at people and expect them to suddenly love every inch of themselves. There's so much more to it.
So true. And the script actually starts off by painting this almost utopian picture. Like imagine a world where everybody loves their body, every single person.
I mean, that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
But it feels so far away sometimes.
It does, but I think that's the point. It's setting up this ideal, this goal to get people thinking about what that would actually look like.
Okay, I can see that. So how do they actually define body positivity in this script?
They talk about it as rejecting those unrealistic beauty standards we're all bombarded with every single day.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's not just about saying, oh, everyone's beautiful in this vague, generic way, right?
totally. It's about actively pushing back against the idea that there's only one right way to look, which, let's be real, is usually super thin, white, and able-bodied.
Oh, yeah. And that narrow definition is everywhere. It's like it's built into our culture.
And it's exhausting.
Totally exhausting. And the thing is, it's not just about aesthetics, right? This script is really smart about connecting it back to mental health. It talks about how so much of our self-worth gets tied up in how we look.
Right, like if we don't meet those standards, then we're somehow less worthy. It's messed up.
Totally messed up. And this is where the script gets really powerful, I think. It talks about how this whole body positivity movement is actually a shift from needing external validation to cultivating this deep internal sense of self-worth.
Ooh, I like that. So it's not about needing someone else to tell you you're beautiful. It's about knowing it for yourself, regardless of what anyone else says.
Exactly. And I'm curious, as you're listening to this, how much do those external standards still influence how you see yourself? I mean, it's tough to escape, right?
It is tough. I mean, think about it. It's magazines, it's movies, it's social media, it's literally everywhere. And the script actually points out a pretty sobering statistic. Over 60% of people are unhappy with their bodies.
Wow, that's a lot. More than half.
More than half. And it connects that dissatisfaction to all kinds of negative things, low self-esteem, anxiety, and even eating disorders.
Yeah, it's serious stuff. And this is where the script it gets really clever. It brings in this expert voice, someone with authority, to emphasize that this isn't just about feeling good, it's actually a public health issue.
Right. Like promoting body positivity isn't just about being nice. It's about counteracting these messages that can actually have real consequences for people's mental and physical well-being.
Exactly. It's about shifting the entire narrative, not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
I'm curious, though, because the script is pretty optimistic. It talks about how things are changing with brands showcasing more diverse models and influencers these days. But is it really changing the underlying beliefs? Like, are we actually getting closer to that utopian picture of everyone loving their bodies?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Representation is definitely important, don't get me wrong. Seeing people who look like you succeeding and being celebrated can be incredibly powerful. The script even quotes this plus-size model who says, "My body tells a story and it deserves to be celebrated." It's about reclaiming the narrative, not just trying to fit into someone else's mold.
I love that. So it's not about erasing differences, it's about celebrating them, recognizing that everyone's body tells a unique story.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder, what stories does your body tell? What makes you uniquely you? What are those things that you appreciate about yourself, regardless of whether they fit into some arbitrary standard of beauty?
That's deep. But okay, let's get practical. The script lays out these 4 tips for embracing body positivity. Self-love, diversifying your social media feed, rejecting those harmful standards, and supporting others.
Solid tips. I'm down to unpack those.
Me too. Let's start with self-love. It sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Like, what does that look like in real life?
Yeah, love yourself can sound like this vague, fluffy thing, right? The script actually says something like, speak kindly to yourself, your body is your home. But how do you actually put that into practice?
I mean, it's easier said than done,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Or
One thing that's helped me is to actually treat myself like I would treat my best friend. Would I constantly critique their appearance, point out every flaw? No way. So why do we do that to ourselves?
It's like we're our own worst enemies sometimes.
Mhm.
So if we wouldn't say it to a friend, we shouldn't say it to ourselves either. But what are some other tangible things people can do to cultivate that self-love?
Mindfulness is huge. Pay attention to your self-talk. When you catch yourself being negative, challenge those thoughts. Replace them with positive affirmations, things you genuinely appreciate about yourself. It might feel awkward at first, but trust me, the more you practice, the more those neural pathways start to shift.
It's like rewiring your brain to focus on the good stuff.
Exactly. And I love the idea of giving yourself compliments instead of I hate my, it's I appreciate my.
It's such a simple shift, but I bet it makes a big difference over time.
It really does. And listen, it's not about denying areas you want to improve. It's about approaching them from a place of self-respect, not self-loathing.
Okay, self-love, check. Now, let's talk about diversifying our social media feeds. The script really encourages us to follow accounts that celebrate different body types, which makes sense. But I'm curious, how does that actually change our mindset? Like, is just seeing different images enough?
Well, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with images that represent this very narrow standard of beauty, right? It's like looking at the world through a tiny peephole. Diversifying your feed is like throwing open the windows and letting the sun shine in. You start to see that beauty exists in so many different forms, and it starts to challenge that narrow definition you've been conditioned to accept.
It's like expanding your definition of what's beautiful, what's possible. It's like you're retraining your brain to see beauty in all its forms. And speaking of expanding definitions, the script goes on to say that body positivity is more than just a trend, it's a movement, like a real movement pushing for lasting change. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, it's about acknowledging the body image doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's tied to all these other social justice issues, racism, ableism, ageism, it's all connected.
Oh, totally. It's like those systems work together to tell certain people they're not good enough based on these completely arbitrary standards.
Exactly. It's like saying you're not the right color, size, ability, age, whatever it might be,
Mm.
and those messages are constantly being reinforced, making it even harder to break free.
So it's not just about accepting your own body, it's about fighting for a world where everyone's body is accepted, regardless of their background or identity.
Exactly. It's about collective liberation, everyone being free to express themselves authentically without fear of judgment or discrimination. And that's a powerful idea, but it also raises questions. Like, how do we actually go about dismantling those systems? It can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Right. It's like, where do we even begin? The script gives us those personal tips, which are great, but how do we move from individual action to systemic change? What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, there's no easy answer. It's a complex issue with deep roots. But I think awareness is the first step. Having these conversations, challenging those harmful narratives we encounter every day, it's crucial. It's like planting seeds. We might not see the results immediately, but those seeds are taking root.
So it's about changing the conversation, not just our own minds. Speaking of changing the conversation, the script talks about rejecting those harmful standards. But what does that actually look like in practice? How do we unlearn all those messages we've been absorbing for so long?
Well, for starters, we can be more mindful of the language we use,
Yeah.
even in casual conversation. Do we compliment people solely on their appearance, or do we acknowledge their inner qualities as well? Do we talk about bodies in terms of weight and size, or do we focus on health and well-being in a more holistic way?
Right. Even something as seemingly innocent as, oh, you look great, have you lost weight, can reinforce the idea that thinness equals beauty.
Exactly. And those little comments add up. It's about shifting the focus away from appearance and towards what truly matters, like someone's character, their skills, their contributions to the world.
I totally agree. And we can also be more conscious consumers, like supporting businesses that promote body diversity and challenge those harmful standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Do their ads feature a variety of body types? Do they use inclusive language? We can vote with our wallets and support companies that align with our values.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is. And speaking of being active, the script also mentions supporting others. How do we do that in a way that's genuine and helpful, not just surface level platitudes?
I think it starts with listening,
Yeah.
really hearing people's experiences and acknowledging their struggles. It's about creating safe spaces where people feel comfortable sharing their vulnerabilities without fear of judgment.
So it's about being an ally, not just a bystander. And sometimes that means speaking up when we see injustice, challenging those harmful comments or behaviors, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Because silence often equates to complicity. We have a responsibility to use our voices to advocate for change, whether it's calling out fat phobia in the media or challenging discriminatory policies in our workplaces.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that our individual actions, no matter how small they seem, can have a ripple effect and contribute to a larger movement for change.
Beautifully said. It's that collective action that's so crucial. It's not about any one individual. It's about all of us working together to dismantle those systems of oppression and create a world where everyone feels empowered to embrace their authentic selves.
So what's next for the body positivity movement? Where do we go from here? What are your thoughts?
I think one of the most important things is to keep pushing for greater representation in all areas of society: media, fashion, healthcare. We need to see a wider range of body types reflected in positions of power and influence.
Because when you see people who look like you achieving great things, it breaks down those limiting beliefs. Like, it shows you what's possible. But it's not just about that external representation, right? The script talks about these internalized biases we all carry, even if we're like totally on board with body positivity.
Oh, absolutely. It's like we've been soaking in these messages about what's good and what's bad for so long that it's bound to, seep into our subconscious.
Totally. It's like even when we get it intellectually, we might still struggle with those deep down judgments.
That happens to all of us.
Yeah,
So it's a constant process, this whole unlearning thing.
for sure. And I imagine it can be extra tough when you're just bombarded with images all the time, like just scrolling through your phone.
Yeah.
Any tips for our listeners who might be struggling with that?
Well, mindfulness is key again. Just notice those thoughts as they pop up. Be like, oh, there's that comparison trap again. And don't judge yourself for having the thought. Just acknowledge it and gently redirect your attention. Maybe focus on something you appreciate about your own body, or remind yourself that those images are often like heavily edited and don't represent reality.
Yeah. Catch yourself before you fall down that rabbit hole of negative self-talk. And I think that's a great takeaway from this whole deep dive. Body positivity isn't about reaching this perfect state of self-love. It's about that ongoing journey, challenging those messages, both the internal and external ones.
You nailed it. It's a process, and we're all in this together. There will be days when you feel amazing in your skin, and days when it's a struggle. And that's okay. The important thing is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep moving towards that greater sense of acceptance and self-love.
And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of people out there fighting for a more inclusive and accepting world. Find your tribe, connect with others, and keep those conversations going.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been such a cool exploration of body positivity. We've covered so much.
Yeah.
From the definition and why it even matters, to connecting it to social justice,
Yeah.
to those practical tips for actually cultivating self-love.
Totally. And for me, one of the most powerful things was that quote from the script. Everybody is a beautiful body.
It's so simple but so powerful.
It really is. It's like this reminder that beauty comes in every size, shape, color, ability, you name it.
It's about celebrating all those differences and recognizing that everyone is worthy of love and acceptance, just as they are.
I love that. So to wrap things up, if this deep dive has resonated with you and you're feeling inspired, I have a little challenge.
Oh, I love a good challenge. Hit us with it.
What's one small action you can take today to embrace body positivity in your own life?
Ooh, I like that. It could be anything. Maybe it's complimenting yourself in the mirror, unfollowing those accounts that make you feel bad, or speaking up against fat phobia when you see it. Every little bit counts.
Exactly. Change starts with each of us. So go out there and be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Love it. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another adventure into the world of knowledge.